You prepare for a golf tournament?
Well, I hit balls maybe 20 minutes, putt a little bit, smoke 4 or 5 cigarettes, drink 3 Diet Cokes, and go to the first tee. Some days I won't even go to the range.
Here we go. It's another edition of the Daily Puck Drop. It is Tuesday, June 3rd. Hello, kiddos. How's everybody doing on this fabulous Tuesday? Glorious day outside. Thank you for watching and also listening live. Now, if you're later in the day and you're like, wait a minute, he goes live? We do. We go live every day on Twitter, simply just Puck Sports. Also on YouTube, Puck Sports. And, of course, you can listen to the show on the Puck Sports mobile app. Download it to your iPhone, also to your Android phone from Google Play and the iOS store, so you can listen to us live. Also an Apple CarPlay. So I know someone was sent me an email, and we'll look into it with Jacob, the app guy, as someone was saying that maybe it was an issue with the Android. I will look into it. Not being able to go away from the app to look at other stuff. We'll look into it, my friend. Also, if you are joining the live crew, you come in late, you miss anything, everything goes up to YouTube for you video people right at noon. And for you audio folks, everything podcast immediately after the show, all up there by noon. We're working fast behind the scenes on Apple, Spotify, your favorite podcast platforms. Doesn't matter which one it is. And, of course, you can find everything up at the world-renowned website, pucksports.com. When you're there at pucksports.com, hey, we encourage you to join the Pucks Posse for as little as $5 a month. You get access to all the free content we do. Well, frankly, you get access to everything that we do, which includes all of our free content, plus added bonus shows like the Sports Pit, which has been delayed this week, working out the schedules of massive egos. We are recording tonight. It will come out later tonight with myself, Steve Sandmeyer, Matt Stretch Johnson, and Mitchy the Kid. Mitch Unfiltered joins the Sports Pit tonight. First time that those three will have been together since KJR when they last did the morning show. And I don't even know. I can't even tell you when that is. So this is really an episode tonight. I won't say much, which is good for everybody. No one needs to hear me, especially on that show. So that will come out later tonight. Also, my weekly appearance with Mitch, which comes out on Thursdays. You get that as the added bonus shows. Tomorrow's appearance with Ryan Divish, our MLB insider, there as well. All right, we get you covered here. That's what we do here. Coming up on the show today, we'll talk M's Orioles. Real quickly, we'll talk about the Sam Darnold struggles. He threw 2 interceptions in 3 plays. It's time to panic. Yeah, goddamn right it is. Let's panic away. Sam Darnold. Jim Duquette, we'll talk to him coming up in a few minutes. John Canzano from johncanzano.com. But first, we're, of course, broadcasting from the Limback Lumber Studios. Contractors, yeah, we're talking to you. Okay? We're looking and talking to you. They got free deliveries from everything from whole house packages to homeowner DIY projects, the largest stock moldings in the Northwest. Old school service. They've been doing it since 1930. Damn near 100 years, people. I can do math. Give Limback Lumber a call, 206-782-3487. Visit them online at limbacklumber.com. Follow me on all the social media platforms. On Twitter, Instagram, it's Puck Sports. Also on Blue Sky, if you like it over there. Puck_sports on TikTok. We put a lot of our video clips from the show daily there. And also on Facebook. And as I mentioned before, pucksports.com. Sign up to become a Pucks Posse member. Again, just $5 a month is all it costs you. That's it. All right. Jim Duquette coming up here momentarily. M's and Orioles get underway tonight. George Kirby will get the ball for the Los Marineros. They had the off day yesterday. It's kind of lonely when they don't play. I'll be honest with you. I don't like when the team doesn't play. I need my baseball fix. I have been switching a lot over to college baseball. Congratulations to the Beavs. Oregon State moving on to the Super Regional. They'll take on Florida State. God, that's a fun team. It's a fun team to watch, Oregon State. And it's amazing that little school in Corvallis has like one of the most dominating dominant, I should say, baseball programs in America. Sensational. We're going to talk to Canzano about that coming up during his appearance. So George Kirby gets the ball tonight. And all we need to see from George Kirby is a little bit better outings than he's had in the first two starts. First two starts have been rusty, but like we said last week, it's like he's working on something, right? It's spring training numbers there for George Kirby. 11 earned runs in his first two starts there for Kirby, so he has not been sharp early on. We'll see if he can get it underway against a team that has just been terrible. This is a terrible offense. And this is a team that has been terrible all season long. The Orioles limp in to T-Mobile Park, facing a lot of scrutiny from their fans and the media back in Baltimore just about how this is the scary exercise when you're one of these teams. And I'm not saying the Mariners are like this because they certainly spend more money than the Orioles. But when you have this, this system, this farm system that is so heavily regarded. And I mean, the Mariners fall into this as well to a degree. We get infatuated with farm systems. We all do. We're so excited Cole Young is up for good reason. So excited that, at the moment that Ben Williamson came up and all the other guys that are on the horizon, right? Harry Ford, eventually Colt Emerson, Laz Montez, Gerangelo, the pitcher there forever. We can't wait. Celestin, we can't wait for all these guys to come up. I mean, you have no idea if any of them are going to pan out. And the Orioles are finding that out, that their guys have not panned out like everybody thought they were going to. Adley Rutschman has had one of the worst seasons this year. And so the Orioles bounce in here. So much hope in the last few years for the Orioles because of their young talent built through their farm system. The Holiday's back up and he's playing much better now. But their system was highly regarded. But what did they not do? Well, they didn't do what Seattle didn't do. Didn't really add to it. Now, they didn't add any high-profile players. Didn't go out and spend money. So to a degree, there are some parallels between the Mariners and the Orioles of not going out and actually spending any money. And that's the risk you run with these organizations when you don't go out and do that. But again, the Orioles come into town. Again, one of the worst offenses that you're going to see. They're bottom third in offense in almost every stinking category, and their pitching isn't that much better. They got a team ERA of 5.47. Sagano gets the start tonight. He's the best pitcher the least they're going to face here in the next few in terms of stat-wise, 4 and through the 3.23 ERA. And then you get tomorrow, you get Pavic with a 5.29 ERA there against Emerson Hancock. Thursday, it is Wu versus Eflin. So you got the pitching advantage in all three of these. At minimum, you need to take 2 out of 3. This would be a great time to sweep a team that has just not been good this year. And I mentioned Adley Rutschman. Hey, where's Ben Nicholson-Smith? Is he around? Is he still covering the Toronto Blue Jays? Remember when Ben Nicholson-Smith said Adley Rutschman's a much better player than Julio Rodriguez? And that's why Julio's not going to be unanimous MVP or Rookie of the Year. Adley Rutschman, this is his slash line this year, 203, 300, 332, and 632. 5 home runs and 15 runs driven in from the former Oregon State Beavers. So Rams and Orioles get underway later tonight. All right, OTAs. It was open to the public yesterday for your Seahawks. They're out there in their beautiful-looking jerseys running around, making plays. It was good to see some of the recaps from it yesterday. Pretty much kind of everyone having the same opinion. I was peering through Bob Condotta's work early this morning there from the Seattle Times, pointing out that Sam Darnold did not look good. It was kind of rusty. He had 2 interceptions in their red zone, and I think one was by Job. The other one was by who am I blanking on the other? Was it Diggs? No, who was it? Who was the other interception? I can't remember I'm blanking on who the other Diggs. I'm blanking on who got the other pick. But anyways, did not look good in the red zone. Kind of was an uneven performance. Okay. Chalk it up to maybe some rust. But this will be the storyline. And it was something we talked about last week at great length with Garofolo, is the amount of pressure that's going to be on Sam Darnold heading into this year. Because Sam Darnold has got to deliver. Because Sam Darnold, what version of Sam Darnold are you going to get? Sam Darnold, the last few games of the season with Minnesota, or or Sam Darnold before that, or Sam Darnold when he was in New York. So there's going to be a mix in there. But, I think as he obviously goes, this team goes, and they need him to deliver. They just do. There is a calculated risk. I am all for it, of what they did at that quarterback position. So he had an uneven start, did not look great yesterday. Some of the obvious ones, Greg Zabel's in there at left guard. That was going to shoehorn him in immediately. That was obvious when they drafted him. The only intriguing battle is going to be on the other side at the right guard position between Anthony Bradford and Christian Haynes. See who wins that one there. Looks like Oluwatimi took the majority of the snaps yesterday at center. Imanwari, that was kind of an interesting thing, but I don't know if it was shocking that he ran with a lot of the ones, especially when they went to their, as Bob pointed out, their nickel and dime packages. And again, that really impressed there in college. Was a force. Boy, you look at him and you just, some of the pictures that come out and the video that comes out just oozes what you saw in a previous regime with the Seahawks and the Legion of Boom, and the comps with Cam Chancellor. You get a little excited watching them. So that's the very latest from OTAs. I don't believe they're not open today. I think open to the public again coming up tomorrow. All right. Here we go. He is our GM. He joins us every single week from MLB Network Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 89. Jim Duquette, GM, there on social media. Puck Sports GM of the Year. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Jim Duquette. Hi, Jim. How are you?
How you doing? Good to be back. Welcome back. You had some travels.
We did. That's right. We didn't do the show last week. It was a long, extended Memorial Day weekend. We were playing in a baseball tournament down there in Bend, Oregon. It was beautiful, 80 degrees every day.
How'd you do?
They did okay. Yeah, they did okay. Should have done, got one more win, but you know what? Bottom line is they had a lot of fun and a lot of pool time.
Yes. Yeah. You better have pool time when you're on the road with youth baseball. You have to stay and if you have to stay in a hotel, you better have a hotel with a pool for sure.
Well, a hotel with the pool and then a hotel with a bar. I don't know who had more fun, the kids or the parents at night.
It's supposed to be a little of both. I do know there are times when the parents do have more fun on the road trips, and so those are the behind the scenes things that I find comical for sure.
Yeah, they're fun. It was a lot of fun. Hey, let's start off by this. Can we just take a moment here and we need some. You are a national baseball guy. I need for you to start carrying the flag more and more for our guy Cal Raleigh. Can we just gush about what Cal Raleigh has done this year? He's just putting together the most dominating season ever for a catcher in Major League Baseball history. The last month of play, this guy's got 11 home runs. He's driven in 22. He's got a 293 average. He's slugging almost 700. He's got a WRC plus of 213. For people who are not aware, that 100 is an average. He is clearly the best catcher in baseball. And right now, I was watching MLB Network TV this morning. They have a whole segment on this one. It's gaining steam, but he's challenging Aaron Judge right now as MVP in the American League.
He is challenging that for sure. I mean, if you look at the home runs, he's challenging the 60 homer mark as a catcher. We've never seen that. That would be insane if he got to that. Even if he got to 50, it would be crazy. He reminds me a little bit. So back when I first started out, we had a switch hitting catcher named Todd Hundley. His dad, Randy, played in the big leagues for the Cubs. He was like one of the best switch hitting, power hitting catchers that I can remember in recent memory. Cal blows him away. It's not even close on that. And I think what stood out to me more than anything, and when I see him, especially on this run, I just go back to the conversation you and I had many times over the last year. Just sign Cal Raleigh. Like, get him signed. Like, how does that 6-year deal for $105 million, right? It was 105? Yeah, $105 million. How does that look right now? It looks like a bargain, and we're just getting into the first year of it. So, thankfully, they did the right thing. They got that done. And, I love his leadership skills, too. We've talked about him a little bit, just in his willingness to say what's on his mind and just show the leadership from, which is what you need from a catching side of things. But the offense has been off the charts, and thank God, because they've gone into a funk this month of May overall.
Yeah, he's without a doubt has had to carry this offense as they have certainly sputtered. Here's what's just more amazing about what he's put together, and he has two milestones that are in grasp or in sight for him. One would be, you talk about 50 home runs, 60 home runs for a catcher would just be insane. I mean, he's got a chance to have the most home runs in the history of baseball for a catcher. 48, I believe, is the mark by Perez, which was set back in 2021. But here's the mark that I found today that, I mean, if he eclipses this, you're talking about one of the all-time greats. The all-time record for home runs for a switch hitter is 54 by Mickey Mantle in 1961. That is very much in reach for Cal Raleigh.
Sure. Well, switch hitting catcher would be Hundley, I believe, low 40s. And then for a switch hitter in general, like you mentioned, that would, and I think both of those are within reach. Like, I think he'll blow away the switch hitting catcher record. But I think that 50 plus is within. Again, this is always based on health and everything else. But I mean, this guy has been an absolute force, and I love it. I'm just glad to see it. He's a great guy, as you know, and it's been really amazing this run. Like him, Judge, and Ohtani. Like, those are the three names that come up during this stretch of, like, Ohtani's numbers here recently. I was just looking at this stat here today. I think it's I got to find it just to make sure I'm accurate. 17 homers in his last 31 games. Right? That's crazy. Yeah, but Cal is not that far off from those type of numbers. That's how good it's been.
You're in New York. Is Cal Raleigh's name being mentioned more and more? And if this continues with both of them and they continue to kind of go back and forth for the rest of the season, how does one sit back? I mean, again, I'm biased because I'm in Seattle, but how do you sit back from a national perspective? And if they keep doing this and they're kind of somewhat neck and neck offensively, the value of a catcher far outweighs the value of a right fielder. How much eventually will voters take that into account?
They will take it, as kind of a differentiator. The voters will. A lot of times with these, and Judge has been so good. He's at the top of the league in a lot of these offensive categories, and he was over 400 for the first, almost 2 months of the season, batting average wise. So he's got the power and the batting average. If you look at wins above replacement, he's a good defender too. But like you said, on the catching side of things, I mean that grind of catching, all the time or most of the time and swinging the bat and productive like he is, will definitely resonate with voters. A lot of this, also depends. I feel is how far do both teams go too, right? So right now the Yankees, I've watched for a while now. I think the Yankees are the best team in the American League. Seattle is obviously one of three out there in the West, but if you're on the team, if you're like the best player on the best team, you're going to get a lot of votes just because. So right now, I think that there's a lot of voters that would be going, okay, Judge is the clear guy. I don't think it's that clear cut, but I think he has a nod. But again, there's still a lot of season left. We're only a third of the way through.
Last time, I don't know if we talked about this guy, but since we last talked, the Mariners have called up one of their top-rated prospects in their organization. Second baseman Cole Young comes up, gets his first Major League Baseball hit in his first game, and then has the game-winning RBI later in that game. Thoughts on Cole Young and the buzz around the league about the young second baseman?
Yeah, I've liked him. A little bit I've seen of him in the past. I saw the walk-off that he had there. He's a contact guy. I think he's a really good defender. He's really upped his game defensively. I think he could be future shortstop. Once they want to move Crawford to, maybe move Crawford to second at some point, in the future. Right now, obviously, Young's going to play second. He needs a guy that makes contact a lot. There wasn't a ton of power stolen base threat this year, but He's still a young guy, and I think for me, I like the fact that the Mariners are looking at, okay, if you're doing the job and we need you, we need help there, we'll bring you up. That's like, get him up there. Williamson did well and has been fine there. And I think Young's going to be there as long as he can at least show that he's not overmatched. I think you're going to see him there for a while. So the reports are very good on him, kind of long term. It's kind of I don't know, the old school two-hole hitter. Maybe he's a leadoff guy because he has a great idea of the strike zone, doesn't strike out, but there's a lot to like there with him.
The Orioles are in town here for the next 3 nights here. Jim, the parallels, you can make some parallels between these two organizations. Great young farm systems. They've brought some guys up here. Did they do enough? Have both organizations done enough during the offseason, though, to supplement some of the young talent and go out and spend? The Orioles are getting crushed this year for not doing that, for wasting away this young talent because they didn't go out and spend on it. But their young talent also at the same time has not performed, which was so highly regarded. What's the story? What has happened to this organization? Because 2 years ago, you would say, oh, God, in June 3rd of 2025, we could be talking about a team that is going to be a World Series contender.
Yeah, they have underachieved probably more than anybody. There are a couple things. They did not replace, they had Corbin Burns last year. They never really replaced him. They went out and they got Charlie Morton, in his early 40s and really struggled. And Sugano, who I think will probably pitch in this series. Sugano's an older Japanese pitcher.
Oh, we lost him.
And Sugano has pitched well overall. He's kind of a command and control pitcher, kind of the older Japanese-born pitchers are. But their pitching has been a disaster. They've had injuries to their top pitcher, Grayson Rodriguez. He hasn't even pitched this year. Like you mentioned on the offensive side, Colton Cowser, who is in the Rookie of the Year conversation, he's back just now. Like today's his first game back. He's been out with an injury. One of the other top offensive players, Jordan Westberg, has been out on the injured list for over a month. And some of their, like Adley Rutschman, who switch hitting catcher, has really struggled offensively. So they've had this kind of whirlwind of events that have all kind of culminated in a bad season. It cost Brandon Hyde, their manager, his job. They fired him. It's not his fault. It's a poorly constructed roster, in my opinion. And the GM, Mike Elias, is under a lot of heat here locally in Baltimore. So this is, they've been playing a little better lately, but that's only because they played the White Sox, who are just god awful. We'll see. I think it's a good time. This should be a series that the Mariners are able to win.
Well, I would hope so. Yeah, this at minimum, you're taking 2 out of 3. It'd be great to see if they can be able to sweep these guys and just kind of give themselves some breathing room here against the Astros. The Astros, by the way, taking on Pittsburgh tonight. I want to get into Paul Skeens because Paul Skeens is on the mound later tonight. You mentioned Ohtani. I want to touch on him, but first, Yankees-Dodgers this past week and the numbers, they show it. What great baseball theater that was, especially in the first game on Friday night, which was on Apple TV. You got Aaron Judge has a home run in the first inning. Then immediately in the bottom of the first inning, Shohei Ohtani hits one. It was just awesome to watch.
Yeah, I think he ended up with 2 in the game. Ohtani did. And, listen, the Dodgers really outclassed them that weekend. That was the best game of the 3. The Saturday game was an absolute blowout. They batted around in that second inning. Sunday night game, the Yankees had a good game all the way around. But I felt like the Dodgers were clearly better than them. Even with the Dodgers injuries, they have a ton of injuries to the rotation and their bullpen. But Ohtani is bringing so many eyeballs to the sport, especially over in Japan, and then on top of that, how good, that matchup was. I haven't seen the ratings yet in the country in Japan, but they continue to really dominate the sport over there. It's 50% of the viewing there, especially because of the Dodgers with Yamamoto, who pitched on Sunday, right. And Sasaki, who's on the injury list right now. But I think that overall, that matchup, we're probably going to see that matchup again. It's a good chance of that. I mean, it'll be there's some things that obviously have to happen, but those are two high-profile teams, and we saw it last World Series.
One of the bigger storylines over the weekend was also Ohtani throwing another bullpen session to live hitters. When he does return, his role will be what you think?
I think it's going to be starter. They need him as a starter.
Okay.
They promised him to be a starting pitcher when they signed him. He wants to start. Like, those are all things that kind of play into the equation. Obviously, he's trying to stay healthy, keeping him healthy. They're probably going to pitch him once a week when he comes back. But if you kind of look at their injuries, they have a ton of injuries in the bullpen, but they need him in the rotation. For how good Yamamoto's been. Kershaw has not been all that great. He's only had a couple of starts. He's certainly on the decline. But they've got Glasnow out. Snell's been out. Like the injuries are for real there. So I really think when you look at them overall, they need him, as a starting pitcher more than anything. So it looks like he'll come back. And Dave Roberts has talked about that too. He's probably got, I don't know, 5 or 6 kind of simulated / rehab games. So he's probably not going to be back till after the All-Star break.
It's interesting, and you have a front row seat to it because you do broadcast work for the Mets. Is for all the Juan Soto struggles, right? And I know he's getting out of it right now. The Mets have the best record in the National League, and he hasn't even started going yet.
It's interesting. You're right. He well below. He's never had this slow of a start in his first 55 games in his career. He's off to a really slow start. But he is starting to heat up a little bit, and that he will eventually. Lindor didn't have a great month of May, and neither did Alonso. So this month they were just average or a little below on the offensive front, but they had success on their pitching. Their pitching's been fantastic, both starters and relievers, and their offense will definitely kind of figure it out. So I think that's the scary part. If you're looking at it. If you're playing the Mets here, beyond June into the remaining parts of the month, that their offense really hasn't hit stride yet. They had their top player, one of their top players from last year, Mark Vientos, just blew out his hammy yesterday in the game, so he's going to be on the shelf for a little bit. And they've had a couple other guys kind of step up in their stead, but they're a fun team to watch. I see them, on a nightly basis for the most part. And I think, it's Dodgers. The National League is a little stronger in terms of the quality of the, 3 or 4 teams: Cubs, Mets, and Dodgers. And then the Padres you can throw in the mix. I think it's more wide open in the American League, just like in the American League West. I think the entire American League, with the exception of the Yankees, is more wide open.
Where would you put the Phillies in that discussion?
Phillies are in the mix too, certainly. I mean, the Mets just passed them in the in first place, but Phillies had overtaken the Mets there in first place in the East. They've gone through a little bit of a slide, mostly because of their bullpen.
Yeah,
the bullpen needs some help. Every team, this time of the year, you kind of see the holes, you see the weaknesses. Phillies are going to be in the mix too, for sure. So it's like you throw the Phillies into that equation, along with the Padres. There's 5 teams I think that really stand out in the National League above the others. Atlanta has been really confusing and poor. So the Diamondbacks, I think both of those teams, are better than what they've shown. And the Giants are, I think, they're out kicking their coverage right now. They're good, but I'm not so sure they can maintain it.
It's the last time you've seen an organization what the Braves did, and it's a local connection. They fired the third base coach, and that's Matt Tuiasosopo, who's from out here. I can't recall the last time an organization has done that.
They fire coaches in season, but not third base coaches.
No.
Usually it's the hitting guy, it's the pitching guy, the manager, third base coach. So my buddy Freddie Gonzalez is going to be the third base coach. So he's a friend of mine. He was working for us for Sirius. He had like a couple shows. He's former manager for the Braves. Obviously, he didn't burn any bridges after he was fired for Atlanta. And now they rehire him. Brian Snitker replaced him, who's the manager for the Braves. It's weird because that's one of those things you have to watch the team on a nightly basis to know how good or bad the guy is. And their GM, Alex Anthopoulos, said basically, we've had a lot of guys thrown out at home. The numbers don't lie. And so, we decided to make a change only because Freddie Gonzalez is a good one. We'll see. That's not the reason why they're 4 games under 500. It's been inconsistent offense and some injuries with their pitching that they're starting to get healthier though.
I know it's June 3rd, but we're going to get closer to start as we see teams starting to fall off here, right?
Yep.
And potential fits for different teams. And I'll bring up 2 different names for you, and you tell me if they are a fit as the roster is set right now for the Mariners. One, I want to start with Ryan O'Hearn, which we will see this week with Baltimore. Again, only signed a 1-year deal. He's a free agent after this season. Play the outfield, can play first base, is having a good season. What about the Ryan O'Hearn fit in Seattle?
I was going to say to you, when you're watching this series, he's one guy to watch. He's having a great year. OPS over 900, a career season. He can really hit. He's shown power. He's a steady guy. He's an on-base guy, good selective at the plate too. Like he's a perfect fit out there. I love him in that. He's going to be a fit for a lot of teams, but I feel like he's absolutely a fit in Seattle.
And doesn't strike out. I think strikes out like 11% of the time. It's an organization that always use more left-handed bats, and certainly not getting the production. Well, I mean, obviously with Robles out, and then they have the situation there at first base. What about, and again, I mean, there still are in the mix, so you need to let it flush out, but we'll see how truly they are in the mix. What about Josh Naylor in Arizona? Similar deal, just a 1-year deal and a free agent next season.
Naylor, if he's available, yes, he would be a really good fit. He's a guy who has a big power in his bat. We saw him in the postseason. He brings a high level of energy when he's on the field. Like that's a guy you like to have in your clubhouse and on your team.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think that Arizona's going to figure it out.
Okay.
And they're going to be back. They're going to be in the mix. But if like he's one of those guys that I have circled as a guy that Moncada with the Angels, I wouldn't touch him. He's going to be available with the Angels. He could play third. There's guys like that I would say, yeah, okay, keep an eye on. But I wouldn't touch him if I were Seattle. I think for sure Naylor would be another guy. I'm sure they have 1 or 2 others that they could make available if they're out of it. But I think they're going to be in it. They have some pitching, which obviously Seattle doesn't need. As long as Kirby and Gilbert come back and stay healthy.
Okay, a couple of more for you. Would and can, I guess it's 2-part. Would and can the Angels trade Mike Trout?
I don't think they can. First off, he's going to direct where he goes, so it's going to be a few places if he ever decides to accept that. And I just don't think their owner is going to let them do it. He's an interesting guy. Artie Moreno is one of the long time. He's been in the game, since the early 2000s. And if they're not going to have a good team, he at least has, a high profile guy that's going to stay. It's going to be that they can promote, that they can, have the their fans show up to see each night. So I feel like if you're going to make a deal, it's a lot easier to trade him in the winter time. When you can go to him in private, as soon as you say he's available, that becomes a huge story, huge distraction. If he wouldn't let Ohtani get traded, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, which by the way, let's just take for a second that Juan Soto trade for the Nationals. They have 4 major league players right now. Mackenzie Gore, you just saw the Nationals recently. Mackenzie Gore, very good. James Wood, one of the best hitters, young hitters in the sport right now. They have C.J. Abrams, their starting shortstop, really good player. Robert Hassel III.
Yep.
And the 5th guy, who's also going to be a big leaguer. He looks like Kenley Jansen to me as a back end reliever. His name is Jarlin Suzana. Like the Angels could have done that with Ohtani. They didn't. They missed out. So it just kind of speaks to like how ridiculous their organization is sometimes with the ownership. And I just don't see how he'll let Trout, if he'll let their GM trade Trout.
I promised I'd ask this. Paul Skeens, I looked at this up today. He's made 35. He'll make his 36th start tonight. In 35, he's only had 2 games that he has started where he has given up over 3 earned runs.
Yeah.
I mean, he is the start of his major league career is almost unprecedented in terms of a starter.
I think, on top of that, his success, the stuff too, kind of stands out. And what's interesting? Buck he did not pitch great in his own eyes. He had an ERA that was in the mid to, let's say 2.6, 2.7 ERA, and he hadn't even pitched well yet in his own mind. Like, that's scary to think about. He's starting to get the command back. He wasn't able to kind of locate where he wants to, but yeah, he is impactful. There's been an article or two that's suggested that he could be traded. They when he gets to about 2 years left in his deal, and if he's not signed long term, then they might consider trading him. But there's no way they're trading him.
Just doesn't feel like he is built long term for Pittsburgh with all their issues with their ownership group, and that just would be. Yeah, he just seems like he, with the girlfriend and all that. He is destined for bigger and brighter. City and team. So, all right, you're the best. Thanks for always doing it. You're our GM. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks, Jim.
Talk to you next week. Okay, thanks, Buck. See you.
Jim Duquette, our GM here, former GM of the Mets and Orioles, MLB Network Radio, Sirius XM Channel 89. He joins us every single Tuesday to break down the very latest there in Major League Baseball. All right, now over to he does everything: college sports, pro sports, human interest, all of it. I mean, the guy never sleeps. John Canzano from johncanzano.com. Weekly appearance brought to you by Zeke's Pizza, homegrown in the Northwest. Follow John on all the social media channels at John Canzano BFT. Listen to the radio show, The Bald Face Truth, down there in Portland, Oregon. 7:50 the game from 3 to 6, and he joins us every single week. How are you? I missed you last week.
I'm doing well. I missed you too, buddy. I missed you too. Hey, can I just ask you a scary thing right now? One scary thing. Can we start there?
Yeah. What do you got?
All right. So I got a notification on my phone just a few minutes ago, and it said it recognizes that I'm home. Okay. I'm in my home studio. It recognized that. And it says, do you want me to put on autofocus so you can focus more when you're at home? I guess it would limit the notifications and all that stuff. But I'm just scared that my phone seems to know more about my life and my patterns than it should. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I need to ask it. What am I having for lunch?
Yeah. Hey, Siri, what thoughts on today? How is it going for you?
It terrified me.
Yeah, good.
They're all terrified. How do you know I'm home?
Just all you kind of touched. It's funny that you brought that up because you touched it on your mailbag. And I can't remember what the question was, but it was something about AI and just
journalism.
Journalism. Yeah. Will journalism go away with AI? We've seen that where they're writing a lot of stories. ESPN, I think, flirted with it for a while. They may still be using it. They got criticized for it, and I think they went back to AP, but where AI was writing the game stories.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see more and more of that, but how much will it become a presence? I think in mass media, it's only going to grow.
Yeah. It has in your broadcasts, right? We're getting more data than ever. We're getting velocity and exit velocity and spin rate. And, they want to track the ball. They're able to track it, and see where did it miss the strike zone. So we're getting some positive benefits of technology all over sports. But one of the things that's happening in sports media is these newsrooms are shrinking, Puck. We know it. And radio stations and newspapers and TV stations are all, consolidating, and the staff is shrinking. And so in the end, they're using artificial intelligence to generate game summaries on a lot of these, websites for newspapers. And it will look at the box score and it'll tell you, who allowed 2 earned runs on 5 hits, and this person had 2 hits and stole a base. But what it misses is it misses the nuances of the game, and it misses the conversation you have with the manager or or the context of the game itself. Like Oregon State on this big baseball run back against the wall, this fact that they outscored their opposition 50-6 in 4 elimination games. Like, it doesn't quite grasp all of that. And so I don't think good sports writing will ever go away, because there's a real thirst for it and a need for it. But it's kind of creeping in ways that, even the Masters broadcast, remember when they had the Masters clips and artificial intelligence voicing on the highlights?
Ludwig Oberg hits the ball down the center of the fairway.
Yeah.
He is 185 yards out. Well, for anybody that is a youth baseball parent, Game Changer. I don't know if you know this app. It's called Game Changer.
Yeah.
And it lets you track, you score the game, and it spits out in your video, and you're tracking the game for baseball and softball, and other sports use it too. But after the game is over, it writes up a summary of the game. And I'm telling you, right, you'll read it and you're like, well, that's a pretty good write-up.
Yeah.
And it pretty much detailed exactly what happened in the game. And then also when you follow it on the game stream, there's an audio version of it that plays in like crowd noise. And then it goes, here's the 2-2 pitch from John. It's a strike. Strike one. Count is 1-1. I mean, it sounds robotic, but eventually it won't. Someone will give their voice to it, and it'll sound better than ever before. So,
but what it misses is that, Nestor Perez, the coach of your kid's team, had your kid throw 77 pitches on 2 days rest. And there's a story to be written here about the abuse of that right arm and that elbow. And so, I think still, Puck, I have a friend who's big in that AI space. He owns a company. It's a startup. He came to me and he said, I could take all of your columns that you've ever written. I could put them into the system. We could put a game's box score in, and it would spit back a column that was written in your voice. And I'm like, impossible, because I don't even know what I'm writing when I sit down to write sometimes. So there's no way that this thing could know. But I think we're going to get to a period one day where, true voice really will still matter.
I was thinking about it. What about television?
Yeah.
How would I know if that anchor is real?
Yeah.
And all they're doing, they're not offering insight. They're not offering an opinion. They're just telling you what happened today.
Yeah. I think you're going to get to the point where there's a lot of confusion. I mean, go to Instagram right now and figure out who's real and who's not on Instagram. So
I have no idea. All right. Yesterday, I'm going through Twitter, some social media platform. I think it was Twitter. And I love all of it because I believe all of it, and then I don't believe all of it. There was some Texas State rumor floating out yesterday. Oh, it's a done deal. They're coming to the Pac-12. You tell me, is Texas State a done deal? Are they getting close to Texas State of adding them as the 8th member?
Well, I think the Pac-12 knows what it wants to do. And I think anybody who's sitting back going, no, they're waiting for the settlement with the Mountain West Conference to decide it is naive. I think the Pac-12 knows who it wants ideally to add, but I think there are layers to it. Much in the same way where we were told there would be a bite of expansion. Remember, we talked about it, first expansion bite. It was the original 4 Mountain West schools. And then there was an additional bite that brought in Utah State, and there was an offer made to UNLV. I think this next expansion piece is going to come in layers as well, because they need an 8th school to get to 8, but they don't want to dilute what they have. And so, I've heard, Texas State is a great option, but it would be a fallback option, I think, in the eyes of a lot of people, just to get to that 8th member. Then could they go out beyond that and try to lure in a UNLV or a Memphis or a Tulane? There's really a limited number of suspects here, but the fact that there's a limited number of options, I think, has fueled a lot of the, shows that are out there that aren't sourced, that aren't talking to people, that are just kind of throwing spaghetti against the wall right now. And I've heard UNLV is going to the Big 12, and I've heard Texas State is done to the Pac-12. Like, both of those things could happen. It's worth speculating about, but I don't think anything is done. I think right now the Pac-12 it knows what it wants to do. I think the bite of expansion it ideally wants is UNLV. I think Texas State is a fallback option, but I still think there's some question as to how much money the Pac-12 is going to have to go after these schools, and how much do they want to dilute what they've already built? Because I think they feel like they have conference number 5 right now if they do nothing else but just add a member who's an empty suit.
Wouldn't and shouldn't Pac-12 fans be disappointed if Texas State is the 8th member?
I think it's underwhelming for me because it doesn't fit. Like, the two things that they started out talking were, hey, it's either best of the West or it's best of the rest. And going and getting a Sunbelt school that comes at a discount is neither one of those things. And that's where other people are more bullish on it and say, look, it makes sense from a financial standpoint, and the coaches want to get a toe into Texas to recruit. But man, you're getting a pinky toe in with Texas State. You're not getting one of your good toes in there. And so I think you ultimately, I know you like that. I know you ultimately.
What's the best toe? Is it the big toe? I mean, I would assume it's the big toe.
Either the
right?
big toe or maybe that one in the middle. That's that people look and go, "Oh, you're smart." If that middle toe's long, I think people look at that one too and say that's a good-looking toe. But I think in the end, I'm not a foot guy. You gotta have to ask another guest.
Let's
on
ask
that.
Rex Ryan. Let's get him.
You may blow up talking about that. It's not the listeners and viewers you want. But if you did a foot episode, you might really move the needle and go viral on that. But look, I think in the end, the Pac-12, it wants to either get UNLV or it wants the best of the rest, right? It wants to be that number 5 conference. So I do think for me, Texas State, they've never had any success in football. They're not really in the West. It doesn't fit either one of those things.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Yeah, there was something that came out yesterday, but maybe it was just a formality. I saw it, and then here's what caught my attention. I saw this tweet from Boise State, and then you do that emoji that you do all the time with the big eyes, like something's up. Yeah. So what was that? Boise State, they formally notified the Mountain West that their intent to extend or to leave, June 20th, 2026? Yeah. What's that? What's the significance of that?
Well, the Mountain West 5, as they're called within the Pac-12 offices, the Mountain West 5, had to give formal notice to the Mountain West Conference that they were leaving. So San Diego State, Boise State, Utah State, Colorado State, Fresno State needed to give written notice to the Mountain West Conference, plus pay a $5,000 deposit toward their exit fees, whatever they will end up negotiating. And they needed to do that before June 1st to avoid the escalation of potential exit fees. Now, presumably they'd be on the hook for as much as $18 million per school. That would jump up to 2 years worth of media rights, which would be like 36, 38 million, depending on how you scale that, if they did it after June 1st. So everybody expected this. This was not newsy. I didn't make a post about it because I didn't think this was a big newsworthy thing. If they hadn't given notice, maybe that's a post. Yeah. Maybe that's news. But
it got me with the eyes thing, though. Stop doing the eyes.
The eyes was like, hey, check this out. Like, sometimes you got to look at emojis and, hey, everybody, peep on this. Like Jeremiah Dickey, the Boise State athletic director, I reached out to him. I said, do we need to look into this? Is there anything I need to see here? He said, formality. We're just making sure that we're compliant with the bylaws of the Mountain West. Now, everybody else is reading into that does this mean UNLV is not coming and not coming in 2026? I wouldn't go that far. I was told by a source that is inside the conference, the New World Conference, that there's a possibility that UNLV could negotiate their way out of that and, maybe not giving notice early, because part of the settlement discussions pertain to the exit fees of the schools. Certainly UNLV could piggyback on that. I would be surprised if UNLV was not involved in these settlement discussions at all, because they have so much skin in the game, because they're supposed to get all this money from the Mountain West. I think that they would want eyes on what's happening. And if the money's not there, if Gloria Navarro, as the Mountain West commissioner, cannot land the plane on the money, she doesn't have UNLV and she doesn't have Air Force. And I don't care what the memo of understanding says. If you can't deliver the funds, you've got a problem with those schools and their flight risks.
Okay, last few nights I have found myself either sitting outside on the back deck or on the couch, and I've been tuned into one of the 15,000 ESPN channels, and I've been watching the Oregon State Beavers baseball team. Okay, and a couple of observations. One, where's the chainsaw? Do they not have the chainsaw at the baseball game?
Yeah.
Can we not get, like, after they strike someone out or hit a home run, get that thing going? So that's number one. Number two, are all these guys weightlifters as a side hustle? That's the biggest baseball team I've ever seen.
They are. They're power lifters. Yeah.
They're massive. And I don't know if they're just massive and then they wear like size small T-shirts.
They got their 8th grade shirts on.
They are huge. And then the third observation is, boy, does that look like a fun party in Corvallis. Yeah. I mean, they span that crowd, and I mean, everyone's, in the black and orange, boozing away on a Sunday night. I think it was the game I was watching, the USC game, and they're just getting hammered. Like, God, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
I'm amazed by this, John.
Yeah.
How does the culture, school,
the DNA and the culture of that program is worth a study. It is This is not the best baseball team that Oregon State has ever had from a talent standpoint.
Yeah.
But I think it's the most focused team that they've ever had. You watch them during the games, and it's the pressure they put on the opposition. And, they can hit home runs and mash. Obviously, they scored 50 runs in 4 elimination games.
It's their small ball game. I couldn't believe it.
They'll bunt. They'll bunt. They bunted 4 times in an inning and scored runs. Like, the ball barely left the infield and they got there on the board. They can play, and they're very focused. Their coach, Mitch Canham, was a catcher on the 2006, 2007 teams that won national titles. Yeah. He is a mirror of Pat Casey, the old coach that led him to those championships. So you got Mitch Canham now coaching, very calm, very poised. Oh. I talked to him prior to the regional for about 20 minutes, and he was talking about everything but baseball. He was talking about how he took the team fishing and how they played golf. They went to a par 3 and played golf one day. And
great.
They spent a lot of time together, and it's not getting talked about on the broadcast right now because they played an independent schedule. Everybody knows what happened to Oregon State. They had only 20 home games this year because they went barnstorming. But Mitch Canham told me, he said, we were away from Corvallis so much and we were together so much that he feels like this team is tighter because of it. And you can tell in the games, these guys care about each other. They're up on the top step of the dugout. It's not about rally caps. It's about each other. Like, you can see that this team is really locked in. I'm going to say it, Puck. Like I said to Canham, like, do you want to get to Omaha? Of course you want to get to Omaha. He says, I hate when people say, do you want to get to Omaha? He goes, if we're going to go to Omaha, we might as well win it. And I think this team, they got Florida State in the Super Regional, and I could tell you Florida State was watching the USC Oregon State games on Sunday night and Monday going, go Trojans. Like, they don't want to go to Corvallis and play that team in that environment.
I want people to tune into it.
Yeah.
I'm not unaware. It's in Corvallis, right?
Yeah, it's in Corvallis, right on campus. Yeah,
it's insane. This environment there. It's the fans, the players. You're right. They're all on the top step making noise. The game on Sunday, this USC pitcher can't throw a freaking strike.
Yeah.
And their crowd is on him. I mean, just on this game. Almost I felt bad for the USC pitcher.
They brought in extra bleachers for this game. They broke attendance records 3 games in a row. It's like they're just trying to can we get a few more people? They're drawing more than 4,300 people per game, and that place is rocking. And for people who know the campus, it's like a block from Gill Coliseum, right in the center of campus. The dorms are right outside it. So you've got students and you've got alumni and you got longtime Oregon State baseball fans who were there. But I think this team could win it all. I think they could go to Omaha and win it. They're that good.
Here's my question though. My original question was going to be this: how did it start? How did it happen?
Yeah.
How did they turn into this?
It was Pat Casey. I think it's the greatest success story in the state of Oregon's history. I mean, he is a local kid from Newburgh who grew up agricultural, strong values, and he's a salt of the earth guy. And he built a winning program at George Fox, and then Oregon State hired him, much the same as Scott Ruick. They took these small college guys and they handed him resources. And it's interesting because I remember in 2007, I spent a lot of time with Pat Casey in Omaha, and he goes to church every day, in Omaha. So he walks down to this Mary Magdalene church that's in Omaha. So I said, can I come to church with you one day? As we're walking to church, we didn't talk about baseball. We talked about irrigation pipes. He told me when he was growing up, he said he wanted a bicycle. And he said his dad took him out in the middle of the field and pointed to the irrigation pipes and said, that's how you get a bicycle. You got to move all these pipes. That's who Pat Casey is. And I remember they were playing North Carolina in 2007 for the title, and North Carolina had all of these first-round draft picks. And I said to Casey, I said, how do you beat a team like that? And he said, I don't need all the best players. I just need some of them. And they've got, again, the culture and the DNA. And so when all this chaos hit the Pac-12 and the football program at Washington State scattered in the wind, and the women's basketball team at Oregon State scattered in the wind, I found it very interesting that the baseball program didn't lose anybody. Those guys pulled together, and other teams nationally wanted to play them because they're a quad 1 opponent.
Well,
and they were willing to go on the road. And, it's just I think it's a great story.
what's interesting about it is the parallels I think that they have now. It's a different sport, is to Gonzaga basketball.
Yeah.
But this is a hell of a lot more of a successful story than Gonzaga basketball.
Yeah.
And we think as Gonzaga and I get it, college baseball is not as popular as college basketball, but we think as Gonzaga is one of the, it's not Mount Rushmore, but it's one of the top programs historical the last 20 years of college basketball. And this baseball team blows it away because they've won national titles.
Yeah. 3 times. I mean, 3-time national championship, and they're good enough to win this year. They've got the pitching, they've got the hitting. There's a unity there. Of course, baseball is a squirrely game. Like you get in a 3-game series, who knows? But in 2006, they won 6 consecutive elimination games to win the national title. No team in history has done that. And I didn't think it was unusual. Mitch Canham, they needed to win 4 to get to the Super Regional. They won 4 in a row. And, Canham's probably like, it's no big deal. He just, his comment after they lost the opening game of the regional was, hey, we didn't get a lot of home games. Our guys, maybe they decided they needed 5 instead of 3. There's just a calm to that and a poise to that that doesn't exist while the Florida coach is losing his marbles over the grounds crew at Central, Coastal Carolina. Like, it's just, there's no arrogance about it. It's a really easy story to root for.
Last thing I'll move on. I want to get into Mike Leach here real quick. Most of the kids, Oregon guys.
There's some, there's a contingent of Oregon kids. He gets the best. They get the best kids from Oregon. But I find it interesting. They've got a kid named Trent Caraway who hit 5 home runs in 5 regional games. He's a Southern California kid who probably should have been recruited by USC and UCLA. But what they do is they get the best kids from the state of Oregon, and then they go out and because they become such a brand, there are kids not just within the United States but internationally who want to play for them, including Travis Bazzana, who was the number 1 overall pick in last year's draft. And then you go to Adley Rutschman, the prior number 1 overall pick. He's a local kid. And so they're getting kids from around the world who want to come play for them, who say, I want to go to Oregon State. And you're getting kids from Southern California. And the funny thing is, though, they're not taking everybody, Puck. They're not making the mistake that a lot of like basketball teams that get to the Final Four make, where they got 5-star guys and they pick the wrong kids. They are still very selective in who they bring in and who fits the culture and who's willing to kind of do it the Oregon State way. And I find that they also tend to recruit kids who have been on championship teams. And so they try to find team captains and guys that have been on championship teams. So if you look at their roster, you're getting a lot of leadership there.
It's fun. If you're not into it, you haven't tuned into college baseball, tune into Oregon State. They are it's a fun team. It's a hell of an environment. Just tell them. And next time you talk to them, let's get that chainsaw. I want
chainsaw going.
I want somebody walking around.
Kind of not on brand for them, though. Like they're just very low key.
I know, but just get that thing going. Switch over to Mike Leach. It seems like college football made the right choice here, the Hall of Fame. It feels like this is the Mike Leach rule. They changed the threshold to get in terms of wins because he was falling just a percentage point from getting in. So they've righted a wrong here. It's too bad that he's not still with us to see it. But Mike Leach, we're talking about. I brought Mount Rushmore up earlier. I do believe you're talking about one of the Mount Rushmores of college football. His fingerprints are all over this sport, and just not college football.
No.
High school, pros, all of it, everything that he's contributed to the game.
Yeah, if you go to a 7-on-7 tournament, you're watching the principles of the air raid. I mean, it's and he's got so many guys that were on his staff or maybe borrowed from him that are out there, and so his impact on the game alone, to me, makes him Hall of Fame worthy. If you're talking about college football Hall of Fame. Historically, this organization that runs the College Football Hall of Fame has been a little bit stuffy with changing rules. So they had a minimum threshold of you have to have a 600 win percentage to be considered, and you have to have 10 years of coaching to be considered. Mike Leach comes in at 596, not 600. And so he literally was like 1 win away from being eligible. And so he doesn't make it. There's a lot of outcry. They now have lowered the threshold to 595. It's the Mike Leach rule. They're clearing the deck for him in 2027, which is when he would be eligible for induction. But I think too, there's an element here that people miss on. Texas Tech hadn't won really with any consistency before Mike Leach. Washington State had some years, but not like the sustained, consistent, hey, you have to account for Washington State. And Mississippi State the same way. He went to 3 programs that didn't have a lot of historical success. And so I think it's a little bit wrong for the Hall of Fame committee to say, hey, we need a 600 win percentage, because not all these jobs are the same, Puck. Like if you put, Mike Leach at Alabama, he's not going to have the same troubles he's going to have at Mississippi State. And I think it's an apples and oranges conversation at Washington State, at Texas and Texas Tech. He always ended up in that job where he was an outlier trying to punch above his weight. And he did with great consistency. And he had an 11-win season at Texas Tech. He had an 11-win season at Washington State. And, Washington State fans know what that meant and knew the impact of it. But I think nationally, people were, not as tuned in to what Leach did. He did, he told me one time he basically owned Oregon during the Mario Cristobal era. He's just a better coach, right? He was a better game coach. And I asked Leach about it one time, and he said, I beat him with my guys. Imagine what I could do with their guys. Like I always wondered what would happen if USC or Oregon or somebody gave Mike Leach a crack. I would have loved to see him at Tennessee or somewhere like that as well, but he deserves to be in that Hall of Fame.
Yeah. All right. Last thing for you. And I was watching this Saturday night. It was very kind of emotional. I know the show's not going away, but I do believe in a way it is going away. Inside the NBA, where does Inside the NBA rank for you when we start talking about the history of sports television?
I mean, it's got to be, look, if you really look at election time and you see sort of the panel discussion they have around the presidential race, it's born from sports. Like they didn't do that before. There was like sports programming on Fox and ESPN and ABC where they had panel shows at halftime and pregame shows. The political world has learned from sports in that way. And so I think Inside the NBA truly has taken it like to the next level. It's like on jet fuel with the personalities of Shaq and Charles and Kenny and Ernie. It had this own following that I think in a lot of ways magnified the NBA and emphasized what was going on in the NBA. I really do wonder about the negative impact of that show going away on the NBA, because even though the NBA got this massive TV deal, they lost this shot in the arm that is this show that was, for a lot of people, for a lot of peripheral fans, it was all they watched, like, of the NBA. And it was interesting. Now they're trying to, Shaq's out and he's talking about how they're trying to tinker with it. They're trying to do a show without doing a show, or can they do it without highlights because TNT no longer has the rights to the NBA highlights? I don't think it works. I think the best case scenario here is to just say, hey, it was great while it lasted. There's a season for all things. But I think it's just there's going to be a negative impact on the NBA, because I think there were a faction of people in the audience who were getting their NBA entertainment from that show.
Here's what I'm concerned about it. I mean, they've talked about how it's going to switch over to ESPN. That the ESPN will be like how they did it with Pat McAfee, right? They license it out. Here's my concern about that show going over and I guess being licensed by ESPN is, how do you not get ESPN-ified? How do they leave it alone and let it be? And maybe that's in the contract, or maybe that's in the talks.
They won't.
But I just feel like they can't help themselves at that network. And I just feel that eventually will happen. And then they'll ask those guys to go on the other shows. And then that exclusive party to me is ruined.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me sad.
ESPN's the Death Star. I mean, that's what it is. And so I think anything that you put in there, there's a stormtrooper like feel to what's going on in there. And it's sad because, I think some of the great things that ESPN used to do, like Outside the Lines, and maybe a part of their College Game Day experience where you would have a great kind of vignette by one of their investigative reporters, it has been replaced by, hey, look at me, I've got a muscle tee on, let's arm wrestle and drive a Harley. Like it's lost some of the substance of what made it. And that show, that Inside the NBA show, is all about the stuffing. It's the substance of that show. It's the personalities that are there. We started talking in this conversation about AI and how there's just more of the same, and people are shoveling the same crap over and over. If ESPN tries to leave its fingerprints on that show, it won't be the same. And that's why I just think it needs to be left alone and say, hey, look, it was great while it lasted, but I think the NBA may have misplayed its hand with saying, hey, we don't have a spot for TNT inside of this TV deal, because I wish that I think they're going to lose something with that show. It was a magnifying glass. There was a glow to that show that gave all corners of the NBA some sunshine.
Okay. All right. Do we have, what can you tease us with? What do we got cooking at johncanzano.com?
Well, I'll obviously be all over the Mountain West Pac-12 developments and what comes next in expansion, and it'll be sourced. It will be in depth. It'll be something you can get nowhere else. And then I'm taking a dive into Oregon State baseball. Obviously, that's such a great story, how they cobbled together that schedule and are trying to make a run. And then obviously you like the human interest stuff, so I'll make you cry this week as well.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Great.
Sorry, Puck.
Yeah, that's fine. I like to cry. I mean, I like Val Vano. I like to cry and laugh every day.
The emotion is good.
It is. All right.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week. Thanks, bud.
Bye, buddy. Thanks.
There he is, John Canzano, johncanzano.com. A weekly appearance brought to you by Zeke's Pizza. Thanks to Zeke's Pizza, homegrown in the Northwest. Follow John on the social media channels, John Canzano BFT. Bald Face Truth there in Portland at the radio station 750 The Game. He joins us every single week inside the Limback Lumber Studios. All right. Oh, a couple of housekeeping stuff before we get to Hey, What the Puck. Number one is the Sports Pit. Delayed. It was delayed. We do it Sunday or Monday. It's kind of, we fluctuate with myself, Sandmeyer, and Stretch. Schedules didn't work out. It was things everyone's busy. And we have a special guest on this week. Mitch is going to be joining the show. So we are recording the episode 8, I think so, of the Sports Pit tonight. About 8 o'clock. Probably out around 9:30 or so, if you can stay up that late and check it out. It will obviously, tomorrow morning will be out, and you'll be able to watch and listen to all of it. So again, we record the Sports Pit tonight with myself, Steve Sandmeyer, Matt Stretch Johnson, and with a special appearance from the one and only Mitch Unfiltered, of course, joins me on Thursdays as well. So that's coming out later tonight. Also, going to tell you about Thursday. Thursday is game 1 of the NBA Finals. If you're in the neighborhood, come on by and say hello. Buy you a beer. Mike's Chili Parlor. Of course, Ballard's Original Sports Bar. Here, of course, when the Sonics won the NBA championship back in 1979. 5:30 Thursday, an OKC hate night. Go Pacers. Sonics gear. It says encouraged. I say required. But if you want to watch a bunch of Sonic fans, Seattleites root and cheer on the Indiana Pacers, and hopefully they can pull off a miracle and knock off the Thunder, join us at Mike's Chili Parlor this Thursday for an OKC hate watch party. I saw someone, and I hesitated to retweet it because then they would just get annihilated on social media, and who needs that? Of someone who is a Seattle sports fan. In fact, she was a Seahawks fan. And she had retweeted it saying, this get together, it's pathetic. Let it go. You know, that team left. It wasn't the players' fault. And then she said, I started following that team, and now I'm a Thunder fan. And I went through her Twitter, profile, but all of her tweets, and she's talking Seahawks. And, I love the Seahawks, and I love the Thunder. And she's like, hashtag Thunder up. How in your right mind, if you live in this city, or you're in this state, and you were once a Sonics fan, how can you, for the love of God, root for that team. Like I don't get that. That to me is non-debatable, non-negotiable. And if you know someone who grew up a Sonics fan and now watches them and roots for them, disown them as friends. Tell them to find someone else. Oh, that's terrible. But join us Thursday, OKC Hate Watch Party at Mike's Chili Parlor. Also, next week, it's the third edition of the Puck the Picker Majors Pool. So, again, if you're in the pool, if you had picks for the Masters and the PGA, make sure you get them in next week. Sunday night is when the official tee times will come out. Then you're going to make your selections. It still is open for new contestants. Problem with it is now, because it's a season-long contest based on all the majors. If you haven't participated in the Masters or the PGA, you're going to be very far behind. But you can still join if you'd like to. A Puck to Picker Majors Pool, our season-long golf contest. You got to pick 2 new golfers in every major. So for those who played in the Masters and in the PGA, whoever you use in those 2, you cannot use in the U.S. Open. The Puck to Picker Majors Pool, our golf coverage brought to you by Synthetic Turf Northwest. We have some special announcements, I think, starting maybe later this week and next week. Some Father's Day ideas. There is not a better way, and let me repeat this, not a better way to say I love you to your father than reaching out to Synthetic Turf Northwest, syntheticturfnorthwest.com, and get your father what he desires. Because he's out there mowing that lawn. He doesn't want to do it anymore. He's tired of mowing that lawn. He's also tired of that lawn getting brown and burn out in the summer. You know what he wants? He wants to relax in the summer. Doesn't want to mow the lawn anymore. Go get him a brand new synthetic turf lawn from Synthetic Turf Northwest. That's what he wants. Wants a couple things next week, especially if he's a golf fan. He wants a brand new lawn from Synthetic Turf Northwest. He also wants you to do what I did and can be as many holes as he wants. 3 holes, 5 holes. He wants a putting green because he wants to go back there and putt. He wants to be left alone. And he wants to be left alone on Sunday, by the way, on the final round of the U.S. Open. You want to make his day great? Leave him alone. And let him watch golf in peace. Let him have as much as he wants to drink and eat, and just don't talk to him during the final round. I say that sarcastically. But great Father's Day gift. New lawn from Synthetic Turf Northwest. Great Father's Day gift. Anyways, Puck to Picker Majors Pool. Again, first place prize is a stay and play package at Gamble Sands for 2. Second place, a foursome at Fairwood Golf and Country Club. Third place, a foursome at Mill Creek Country Club. Fourth place, a foursome at one of Troon's Seattle Premier courses, plus an hour top tracer range session at either Inter Bay, Jackson, or Bill Wright. Bill Wright, formerly Jefferson. Again, our golf coverage brought to you by Synthetic Turf Northwest.com. All right. So go sign up there at pucksports.com, very top of the webpage. All right. Let's wrap it up with Hey, What the Puck, as we do every single daily puck drop. Hey, What the Puck is brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle. So your restoration company lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services, locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when those damages affect your residential or commercial property. Phone number 206-817-8917, or visit them online at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. Piggyback on that last topic that myself and John were discussing in regards to inside the NBA. If you haven't seen the send-off, it's up on YouTube. It's about 7 minutes long. Go watch it. Great. They all share their final thoughts about that being their final show on TNT, Turner. Beautiful, well-spoken by Shaq and Barkley and Kenny and, of course, Ernie. I want to hope that it's not going to be ruined going over to ESPN, but I think the damage will already be done because it was Turner's and it was kind of this exclusive thing just for TNT, and it was part of the TNT family. And really, I mean, TNT was just doing the NBA, and that's kind of all they've done. They've branched out to do more sports now, but that was their signature thing. That was their standalone. Everybody watched that show every Thursday. It was, even if you didn't watch the games, like I didn't, a lot of times, other stuff going on. I didn't watch the games, but the second I knew around 10 o'clock ish, that show is going to be on, I tuned in. One, you want to get caught up on the league. Yeah, that was part of it, but the real part of it was I wanted to be entertained for an hour. I wanted to laugh. And those four people made me laugh more than any other show. It's the greatest studio show in the history of sports television. And it's not close. It just isn't. Although rivaled by, and I say it all the time, MLB Network Central in the morning. Robert Flores, Mark DeRosa, Lauren Shoddy, terrific. Their chemistry is on par with that group. But that group's chemistry, not only of the four, but the people that work behind the scenes, and I think they're taking their entire production crew over to ESPN. I would just beg for ESPN not to ruin it. Please don't ruin it. Please don't force your personalities on the show. Please don't do any collaboration. Please don't do any cross promotion. Please. For everyone that is a fan of that show, let it be its standalone. Don't ruin it. You have a responsibility over there. You're leasing the show, in essence, just like with McAfee. You have a responsibility not to force people on that show. At the same time, don't force those guys to go on your yelling shows, because that's not what it was. And don't make them do that. Don't make Barkley go on there. Steven, don't make them Kenny and Ernie and Shaq. Please don't. Just don't ruin it. It's the greatest thing in the world. Don't ruin it. We all beg you. Please, ESPN, don't ruin inside the NBA. But unfortunately, it's going to be forever changed, right? It's going to it just will. It just feels inevitable that it just won't be the same off TNT now. All right, that's Hey What the Puck, brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle. Your restoration company lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. Give them a call, 206-817-8917. Visit them online at restoration1.com in North Seattle franchise. Big thanks to everybody for watching and listening today. Love having everyone on every single day. For the people that are in the YouTube chat every single day, thank you so much to you guys. It's fun to see this familiar names every single day in there and throwing out stuff. And they've got their own little chat and community that's going on in there that sometimes is separate, has nothing to do with what's going on the show today. If you ever want to be involved in that chat, just go to YouTube and open up the chat. It's great. Thank you to all the sponsors: Lindbeck Lumber, Zeke's Pizza, Georgetown Brewery. Go check out the new Tavern beer, easy drinking domestic style lager. Remember when that used to be made here with that big, R? Not anymore. GeorgetownBeer.com and Restoration One. Today's Daily Puck Drop, find it up on YouTube when you're there. Please subscribe to the channel, like it, leave a comment, try to get to as many as you possibly can. Also, find the Daily Puck Drop on all your favorite podcast platforms. Apple, Spotify, doesn't matter. And, of course, at pucksports.com. When you're there at pucksports.com, please sign up, become a member of the Pucks Posse. $5 a month for supports everything we do. $5 a month gets you access to everything. Obviously, all the free content, but then the bonus shows that we do as well, like tomorrow's baseball coverage with our MLB insider, Ryan Divish, who's celebrating a birthday, by the way. The Sports Pit with KJR alums, Steve Sandmeyer, Matt Stretch Johnson, which we are recording tonight with special guest Mitch Levy. Mitch Levy's also on the Daily Puck Drop now. Thursdays, we do a live show with Mitchy the Kid. And then once it's over, the live show, his appearance goes behind the Puck's Posse membership wall. That again comes out every Thursday. And now it came out yesterday. We produced the Graz with Gas Take 5 podcast. You can find on YouTube and all podcast platforms. And, of course, up at pucksports.com. All right, that's it for us on a Tuesday. We'll talk to you tomorrow on a Wednesday. As always, promise to be better.
No shoes, no ties.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah.
I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you. But you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for?
We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!